gentlemen, the weekend. Welcome on in to Beat the Bookie. I'm your host, John Eads. Got my co-host, Yale, alongside. Absolutely floored to be making my BTB debut here on CitrusTV. Now, some of you may know me as the guy from Twitter that throws out quote-unquote locks of the week. I'll admit, those may be well under 50%, kind of like Drew Pine's completion percentage at Notre Dame. But do you really think I would actually give you the true locks out for free? Nah. I was saving them just for you guys here on Beat the Bookie. Now, before I give you the games and the picks that will stuff your wallet so big you'll need to purchase a new pair of pants, let's have a gander at how Johnny Eads did last week. I have to say, not a great showing from our previous host. He really gives the John name a bad rap, but don't you worry. We'll pull off our best John Dale's impression and make good on all of that today. Here's a look at the standings through 6 weeks. John Dale's Jacob Morris at the top. I'm going to try to get on top of them because they text me nonstop week after week about how my locks of the week are terrible. But getting into the negatives, Ryan Nelson, Calvin Cristoforo right there just missed the mark at $6. Johnny Eads and Cam Azaire pulling it up in the rear. Hey, I'll give Mr. Eads some credit though. Once he finishes paying off this week's debt, he might have a little change left over to skip on over to the grocery store and snag some macaroni and cheese. Now, I imagine some others of you will also be grubbing on mac and cheese this weekend while you're taking in an excellent college football slate this weekend. With that, let's dive into our big games of the week. We start in Death Valley Junior, where there's a top 15 clash between number 14 Syracuse and number 5 Clemson. The Orangemen roll into South Carolina sporting a 6-0 record for just the third time since 1931. The Tigers, undefeated as well at 7-0, and stand alone at the top of the ACC Atlantic Division. Now, I know some of you may not know much about SU because it's nationally recognized as a basketball school, so let me fill you in on a little secret. Dino Babers' team is a covering machine. Syracuse is tied for the third best squad against the spread this season with a 5-1 record. Okay, yeah, I know it's only one season. Argue with this. Since 2017, the Orange claim about a 59% cover probability. And speaking of 2017, that was the year that Syracuse stunned the number 2 Tigers as a 3-touchdown underdog. Since then, sure, Cuse hasn't had much success against Dabo Swinney and company, but it's given Vegas fits. The Orange have bested the number in 3 of the last 4 games against the Tigers. That's reason enough to put down some dough on Syracuse, and we're going to do just that. Let's toss $15 on the Orangemen to give Big Bad Clemson all it can handle. Over on the West Coast, we got a top 10 battle between number 10 Oregon and number 9 UCLA. It's another instance of a hoop school against a perennial college football power. Well, you guess who's who. The Ducks are an interesting team. Most people wrote them off after they were plowed by Georgia 49-3 back in week 1. But since that embarrassment, the 4-time Pac-12 champs have ripped off 5 straight wins, albeit against some pretty weak competition, the BYUs, Arizona's and Stanford's of the world and whatnot. As for UCLA, well, just stuck up on everybody. The Bruins are one of the few undefeated teams remaining at 6-0 and are coming off a very impressive win 2 weeks ago against Utah. Both teams should be well rested coming off their respective byes, and that'll come in handy for what figures to be an ultra-physical encounter. That doesn't mean this game will be a defensive battle, though. The Ducks and Bruins each own top 3 offenses in the Pac-12, and both units average over 41 points per outing. For Dan Lanning's offense, it's kind of belief without evidence right now, though. Sure, you plastered 5 consecutive opponents, but none of them hold any brass. We saw UCLA handle business against one of the most consistently elite Pac-12 teams in Utah. Now, everywhere you look, the talk's about Oregon's 22-game home win streak, and that's all fine and dandy. On this show, we play numbers, not streaks. The Bruins are 7-1 in their last 8 games against the spread, and $10 says we'll cover in Eugene. For our last big game, we're dipping into the Big 12. Number 20 Texas and number 11 Oklahoma State in Stillwater. The Longhorns are another team that a lot of people stuffed on the back burner after a razor-thin loss to Alabama, but Quinn Ewers is back. And with him, so is Texas. Matthew McConaughey's pride and joy has tabulated 3 straight Big 12 wins, and its star quarterback is ready to come back. So the hype is building in Austin, but around Boone Pickens Stadium, it's at a standstill. No pun intended. The Cowboys galloped through 5 straight teams and were on their way to 6, but then the fourth quarter happened in Fort Worth. Oklahoma State's 2-touchdown lead evaporated quicker than Mike Gundy's mullet. R.I.P. So this might be a Saturday where you think, okay, State just throws in its hand and folds, but that just doesn't happen when Texas is up on the schedule. Each of the last 5 matchups have been decided by 8 points or less. So go Pokes, yeehaw, $10 on Oklahoma State to cover 6.5 horns down. Let's have a look at the C-suite to see how the producers compare with my picks. We agree with Syracuse as a 2-touchdown dog, but they like UCLA, or rather Oregon, not UCLA, and Texas in those two matchups. Razor thin margin thus far between the hosts and the C-suite. We'll see how it all plays out after this weekend. Now let's keep it in the Big 12 because there's another top 25 showdown unfolding this weekend. Number 8 TCU hosts number 17 Kansas State. This game has massive conference title implications, maybe even college football playoff implications too. The Horned Frogs just pulled off a crazy comeback win over Oklahoma State last weekend, but now another stiff test awaits. KSU is one of the hottest teams in the country. The Wildcats played a little Sherlock Holmes a few weeks ago and exposed Oklahoma as a fraud. Kansas State has covered the spread in 6 of its last 7 meetings with TCU. And on top of that, the Cats are 11-1-1 in the last 13 games against Vegas. So I hate to waste any more of your time convincing you, so I won't. $10 says Kansas State will cover in Fort Worth. Just free money, honestly. All right, if you know anything about me, you know I'm a Big Ten guy through and through. So here we go. Let's shine the light on the West Division. An ascending Purdue squad takes the short trip to Camp Randall for a bout with a limping Wisconsin bunch. The Badgers claim 15 consecutive wins over the Boilermakers, but the Trains might get the better of the furry friends this weekend. Purdue is known for its prolific passing offense under Jeff Brahms. You know the points will travel. This game comes down to defense for me. The Boilermakers are much improved under the tutelage of a pair of second-year DCs. Now, when you think of the Badgers, think of the tough, snot-nosed, trench affair barn burners. Well, Purdue has the Jimmies and Joes and the X's and O's to play that kind of game. Case in point, I'll take the block P over the block W, and not just because that letter is used more in the Wordle. Purdue covers 2.5 in the Badger State. Now let's go to the Horseshoe. Number 2 Ohio State and Iowa for the first time since 2017. The layman sees OSU against an unranked, below 500 team and just lobs $20 in the Buckeyes, but not so fast, my friends. Vegas likes Ohio State by more than 4 touchdowns. That's fat. Too fat. Sure, the Hawkeyes have struggled mightily this year, but they don't just pucker up and blow you a kiss. No, they make you work for it. Iowa has covered in each of its first 3 Big Ten games. The last 2 came against ranked squads in Michigan and Illinois. Iowa just comes to play when there's a squad with a little number next to its name on the docket. That's true for this year. It's a trend for Iowa as well. Since 2008, Kirk Ferentz's team owes a 57% cover rate against ranked competition. Ten Smackaroo says it's business as usual in Columbus. Iowa covers as a heavy underdog. All right, fine. I move on from the Big Ten, and now I'll fill you in a little secret. Yeah, let's tell them. Listen close, guys. Oregon State, good at football. Now, in an alternate universe, the one where we all live in NCAA 14, the Beavs have won 6 national titles in the last 7 years. In reality, that's not the case, but this is still a team to be reckoned with out in Corvallis. The West Coast version of OSU is 5-2 and has a chance to nab a bowl berth for back-to-back years for the first time since it did it in 2012 and 2013. Colorado is, well, just terrible. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Buffs became the first Power 5 team to win a game last week after taking down Cal 2013. But a round of applause for the guys out in Boulder. The Buffaloes have the worst offense in the conference, posting just 2 touchdowns per outing. Oregon State, conversely, top 6 in the Pac-12 in run and pass defense. The Beavers' D will build a dam that the Buffaloes simply won't be able to penetrate. One last thing. Oregon State, 16-9-1. That's 64% against the spread after winning a game since 2015. I rest my case. Give me OSU to pick up its 6th win and do so with some style points. The Beavs cover against the Buffs. If we're wrong, blame Yale. Wow, that was rare for me. I actually picked a favorite against the number. I don't know what's gotten into me, so let's just get back to the underdogs, all right? What better way to do that than to share with you my dog of the week? I'm wolfing ACC with this pick and siding with the Panthers of Pittsburgh. Straight up, I think the wrong team's favored here. Pitt running back Izzy Abanikanda rewrote the record books 2 weeks ago. The Brooklyn native scampered 36 times for 320 yards and just 6 touchdowns. The matchup to watch is the talented tailback against the Cards' run defense. Pitt is 13-3 when it runs for 100 or more yards since 2020. Abanikanda is running wild, and he'll carry his Panthers to a win in Papa John's Stadium. Pittsburgh, my dog of the week. Woof. Okay, now for a moment you've all been waiting for, my lock of the week. I mean, let's be honest. Every pick I've given you today, just simply they're all locks. But this is a bet I'm willing to put my bottom Benjamin on, so here we go. Minnesota rolling into a cold date with number 16 Penn State. Now, I hate to rag on Johnny Gadamowicz more, but hey, I'm just doing my job here as a journalist. Last week, he told you that the Nittany Lions would slow down the Michigan Wolverines' run game and cover a touchdown spread. Well, he was wrong. Instead, the defending Big Ten champs pasted Penn State's front to the tune of 400 yards on the ground. Now, why does that matter? Well, because Minnesota plays the exact same way. Run, run, run the ball swiftly down the field. Merrily, 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 into the end zone goes Muhammad Ibrahim. Minnesota brings the Big Ten's third best rushing attack this weekend when it meets Penn State, and it is everything as advertised. I'll sum everything I've just set up in one sentence. Minnesota can run the darn football. Penn State can't stop a team that can run the darn football. Minnesota waltzes into Happy Valley and pulls off its first win there since 2003. Gophers money line, run it up. All right, just some pocket change left, so let's have a little fun. Piece together a quick parlay. First, let's go back to that Oklahoma State-Texas duel. The total is set at 60.5 right now. Now, I'm taking the over. What's my reasoning? Well, it's a Big 12. They don't play defense. But on a more philosophical note, 3 of the last 4 battles have featured score lines well above that 61-point threshold. Quinn Ewers is back for Texas, and the Pokes average over 45 points per outing. A lot of points in this year's rendition of Bedlam, so make like Troy Bolton and bet on it. Additionally, I'm partaking in this very intriguing line in the Ole Miss-LSU contest. Despite being the number 7 team in all the land, the Rebels are a road underdog in the real Death Valley against LSU. But don't get me wrong, it's going to be a close game. But when you think of Ole Miss, you think Lane Kiffin. When you think about Lane Kiffin, think about offense. So look, the home team has won 8 of the last 10 games in this series. That's all fine and dandy. All I care about is that 1.5. Ole Miss will cover that in Baton Rouge. Now, as for the third piece of our parlay, predictably, we're going back to the Big Ten. Massive crossover affair featuring 5-2 Maryland and 1-4 Northwestern might be a great choice for the Sickos game of the week. If you know, you know. The Terps score 35 points per game. Meanwhile, the Wildcats haven't eclipsed 2 touchdowns in about a month. Give me Maryland by at least 2 touchdowns and a half in College Park this weekend. That'll do it for our picks. Here are a couple of my favorites. I threw $15 on the Clemson-Syracuse game. Love the Orange to cover that 2-touchdown spread. Simply just a machine. Additionally, high on Purdue playing in this contest against Wisconsin and Camp Brown. I know there's a lengthy losing streak in that series, but they're ready to go. My dog of the week, Pittsburgh, got them money line for $5 against Louisville. We just ran through that parlay. Love Minnesota. $15 I got on that money line in that contest in Happy Valley against Penn State. That's going to do it for this edition of Beat the Bookie. For our producers, Braden Reed and Ethan Frank, I'm John Eads. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy your college football Saturday, and shoot me a thanks after I stuff your wallet with some Benjamin. You guys take care. Yale says goodbye too.